Hello there. Welcome back to Hydroponics Daily, your go-to podcast for everything soilless cultivation. I'm your host, Dr. Russell Sharp, and I am the founder of Utrema Limited, and we make premium fertilizers, novel biostimulants, and organic biopesticides. And I've been doing this for a number of years, almost decades, and so I know a lot about chemical formulations and organic product formulations. And one of the things that always surprises me is the use of non-food grade preservatives in fertilizer products. I think that people should be aware of this because you are not necessarily eating fertilizer, but you are putting them on plants, and plants can take those up and come into contact with them. And if you're spraying them as foliar products, then they are going on to the produce that is going to be ate or smoked or drunk or things like this. So I think growers should be aware of and look at the preservatives that are in the products. It might be listed on the back of the label if you're in North America, or it will be listed in the safety data sheet. And if it's one of the terrible products not terrible. If it's one of the products I'm mentioning today, then you need to be aware of it. Some of them are terrible products. Others I would use with caution and sparingly. So at Utrema, we have this philosophy that we only use food-grade preservatives so that we know, for two reasons really, so that you can be assured that the product is safe when it's put on the crop and you eat the crop. And the other reason is that we don't want too much microbial preservation in our products, because when we add our fertilizers to the grow media, we do want beneficial microbes to be able to grow. So if you have a really strong and really high concentration of preservatives, then you will wipe your beneficials out as well as the microbes you don't want. Now, preservatives need to be added to most fertilizer products because you need to stop the microbes from eating the product in the bottle. So if it contains any sort of organic matter, sort of like a plant extract or things like this, then you need to add a preservative, just like you would in a processed food. Now, there are preservatives and there are preservatives. So we use food-grade preservatives at Utrema. We think that some of the really bad ones are used because people are cutting corners to reduce costs, and also because they just don't know about what's the best option for formulating the product. So I've got about 6 or 7 products that I want to go through, and I think you should be looking out for these on the safety data sheets or on the labels and just questioning where they are used and whether it's the right preservative to use, or whether you should look for an alternative, such as Gold Leaf, our 1-part fertilizer that gets you from seed to harvest with just 1 bottle, or Liquid Gold as it's called in the UK. So what are my dirty dozen? What are these products? Well, the worst one I've ever come across is formaldehyde, or formalin as it's sometimes called. This is, on the face of it, doesn't look like a nasty chemical, but it is carcinogenic and it is highly hazardous, and it can cause immediate effects if you touch it or come into contact with it, or heaven forbid, ingest it. It's used in some sort of sheep dip type products, so like contact disinfectants for animals, but should never be used in a fertilizer. And the worst case I ever came across was an organic biostimulant, a seaweed extract from, I think it was from the Orkneys in Scotland, and they were using it to preserve a seaweed extract. It was classified as organic, and I was testing its pH because I was testing it against a range of other pH seaweed products that I was, including the ones that I was manufacturing at the time and still do. And I was testing it for its pH, got a drop on my finger. I wasn't wearing any gloves. I wasn't wearing any gloves because it wasn't classified as hazardous, and it was a seaweed extract, so I thought it'd be fine. Half an hour later, my finger has swollen up to twice the size, its normal size. Hard to believe, but very shocking. And I was like, oh, it can't be the seaweed extract. And then read the small print on the back of the label and said, preserved with something really high, like 0.1% formaldehyde. I was like, what the heck? And, well, long story short, that company doesn't exist anymore because they should never have been using a carcinogen to preserve a seaweed extract. So that was probably number 1 on my list. Then I've got quats. That's with a Q, or quaternary ammonium compounds, such as, and this is going to be, don't worry, the scientific names are going out for a bit, benzalkonium chloride. That's the most common one. This is the sort of chemical that you find in patio cleaners and mold removers for your walls. Find it in things like wallpaper paste, really strong residual preservatives and fungicides. These are not the sort of things that you should ever put on food, although some people do. Some people use it for disinfecting hydroponic units and water, and that's because it's cheap and it's residual and it's effective. But it's a skin and eye irritant, it's toxic to aquatic organisms, it's highly toxic, and it doesn't biodegrade. So the quats don't biodegrade. And you'll often see this product contains no quats on the back of cosmetics and things like this. So this shouldn't be going into, if it's not, these are almost banned in many cosmetic applications, certainly banned to put into food itself. So shouldn't really be going into fertilizer. Seen a terrible product in hydroponics where it actually advertised a fact on the label. This contains quaternary ammonium compounds. Clean up your grow room with this and your grow media. And that was shocking, really. And that product didn't take off, thank God, probably because it killed the plants as well. So avoid anything that's got quats in. If you're worried about any of the ingredients that you might be in a fertilizer or a biostimulant or any additive, just stick it into ChatGPT and say, is this safe to consume? So take the CAS number or the EC number or the chemical name, stick it into ChatGPT and say, is this safe to consume? Everything on a gold leaf, or as it's called in the UK, liquid gold label and safety data sheet you'll find is a normal fertilizer ingredient. So don't put like calcium nitrate or, magnesium sulfate into ChatGPT and says, is this safe to consume? Because they're obviously the fertilizer ingredients, the elements, but put the preservatives in and see if it's safe to consume. So formaldehyde is the worst I've ever seen. Next up is quats or benzalkonium chloride or BAC 50, as it's often called. Formaldehyde is a sheep dip. Your quats are your patio cleaners and your mold removers and your wallpaper paste type products. Don't use them. Next up, we've got copper sulfate. It's a moderately toxic, but still toxic, heavy metal. If you consume lots of it, then you will have long-term health issues. A lot of vineyard grape growers suffer from copper toxicity, and the plants themselves suffer from it as well. Too much copper is bad for plants, and using copper sulfate as a preservative is not a good idea. Can be used in certain organic systems for formulation, but it's not the best option, and there are other alternatives out there if you just ask. So copper sulfate is a bad one. Then there's a couple of other ones that I've seen used recently, and I would just say they're not allowed to be used in food production, and they're not allowed to be used in cosmetic production. So if you had a mascara or a lipstick, these wouldn't be allowed in them. So if you're not allowed to put them on your face, then you probably shouldn't put them in the fertilizer on your plants that you're going to eat as well. So one of them is bronopol that contains bromine. Bromine is not an essential nutrient for plants, so you don't need bromine there. And that can release formaldehyde and form nitrazamines, which are systemic hazards in humans. So avoid bronopol if you can. And then cathon, a strong sensitizer known to cause allergic reactions and dermatitis in high concentrations. So cathon and bronopol, not allowed in food, not allowed in cosmetics. So really should be looking to avoid those in formulations if possible. If you need any more information, Wikipedia is a great option. Stick these compounds in there and also just put it into ChatGPT and say, is this safe to use in fertilizer? Is it safe to use in cosmetics? If you know of any other preservatives that are used in fertilizer and you would like me to have a look at them, I'm more than happy to do that. And I can add that as an addendum, is that the word, on the end of the next podcast and talk about those ones as well. So the other thing as well is why a lot of these synthetic pesticides are used is that often people are trying to fight. They've produced a formulation, produced a stable formulation, and then their last thought before they commercialize it is, how are we going to preserve it? Or they've put it on the shelf and realize it blows up because the microbes start growing on it and they think, sugar, how am I going to preserve this? And so they're fighting that rather than thinking the formulation has to be preserved with food-grade preservatives first. That sort of afterthought. And that means that you could have a product that's pH 12 and you're thinking, well, sugar, these food-grade preservatives are not going to work at pH 12, so we're going to have a product that does. So they get to someone like Croda and they say, which is a chemical company, and they say, give us a preservative that will work at pH 12, or give us a preservative that will work at pH 2. Well, really, you should be using high-quality ingredients that are not with extreme pH. I don't think there's many additives that need to be of an extreme pH anyway in hydroponics. Seaweed extracts, the best quality seaweed extracts are mildly acidic anyway, and that's what you want your grow media to be. Humic acids, silicons are going to be high pH, but silicons don't need much preserving anyway. Humic acids maybe. What else could we say on the topic of preservatives? Obviously, if you don't include them, then microbes can grow in them and they can themselves be toxic as well. So can't do without preservatives unless we want to completely rewrite it and use powdered products all the time. You might be thinking, why don't you use peroxide or chlorine to preserve the products? And that's because things like peroxides and chlorines are very short timescale activity. So they break down very, very quickly. Hydrogen peroxide breaks down really quickly. And that's why it's a good thing to sterilize your grow system with peroxides, because it's not going to last. It's going to break down to water and oxygen. And so that makes it a fantastic sterilizing agent, but not a good preservative. And same with chlorine. Chlorine breaks down, and that's one of its issues. I used to work for a company that stored lots of bleach, and the bleach was constantly going off and degrading in quality because the chlorine breaks down and is released as chlorine gas. So that's why we look for alternatives. Silver nitrate is used in very low concentrations for antimicrobial action. However, silver messes with plant hormones, so should be avoided. We think about silver as the colloidal silver is used in feminizing spray in legal cannabis and breeding and things like this, but use it at the wrong time and you could have serious issues with your plant hormones, your ethylene levels, and you could have all your leaves dropping off, or you could have males turn into females and females turn into males. And so, don't use silver nitrate for that reason. Also because it's residual as well, so it's not going to go anywhere. So that's another consider. So I'm not sure if I mentioned quat products are non-biodegradable, and that's one of the main issues with their use, especially as patio cleaners and wallpaper paste and things like this. These are almost forever chemicals, so they should be avoided. That's been Hydroponics Daily for today. Hope you found it interesting. If you disagree on anything, let me know. I know it's not going to be to everyone's taste, this one, and some people will strongly disagree because their products will contain some of these ingredients, but hopefully, stay friends. Anyway, until tomorrow, that's been Hydroponics Daily. If you can give us a review on Apple Podcasts, that would be tremendous, because that bumps us up the podcast charts. If you're not listening to me on Apple Podcasts, sit back, relax, chill out, because giving me a review on any other type of podcast provider doesn't do anything really. All right, until tomorrow, goodbye.